Dear sister and brother, you don't need to be more impressive, more perfect, more anything. You just need to stop giving away your value. And the truth is, you teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. So start today. Watch your patterns, reclaim your standards, protect your energy. Because the right man doesn't need you to shrink, he needs you to shine. Overinvesting too early is one of the most common ways people unconsciously lower their value in the early stages of a relationship. It doesn't come from weakness, it often comes from hope. That spark of excitement, the butterflies, the rush of thinking this could be something real. So you give, you show up, you prioritize him, you make time, rearrange your schedule, check your phone a little too often, reply instantly, and slowly but surely you begin to orbit around his world. The problem isn't the giving itself, it's the imbalance of it. When one person starts to invest disproportionately, especially in the beginning, before there's any real emotional foundation or earned trust, it doesn't create closeness, it creates pressure. It disrupts the natural rhythm of connection because instead of building something mutual, you're building something one-sided. What most people don't realize is that romantic value is deeply tied to perceived effort and emotional pacing. Think about it. When someone chases you hard right away, before really knowing you, part of you might enjoy the attention, but another part of you might think, you don't even know me yet. Why are you giving me so much? That same logic applies when the roles are reversed. When you overinvest too early, it doesn't show how much you care, it shows how quickly you attack. And in the early stages, mystery and curiosity are vital. They're what makes someone want to keep discovering you. Overinvesting doesn't just mean texting or calling too much. It can look like emotional overexposure, sharing deep personal things before there's emotional safety. It can mean physically overextending, hooking up before there's trust, or giving your energy freely without any real invitation. It can also mean mentally attaching to the potential of the person, not who they've actually proven themselves to be. And when you do that, when you give to someone who hasn't yet earned that access to your time, your energy, or your heart, you're sending an unspoken message. You don't need to do anything to earn me. I've already decided you're worth everything. That message removes the challenge, the intrigue, and even the respect that builds naturally when two people earn each other slowly. It's also exhausting because when you overinvest, you start to monitor everything. You analyze his replies, his tone, his silences. You begin to feel anxious, waiting for signs of reciprocation, and that anxiety becomes the first sign that you've stepped out of balance. It's no longer about connection, it's about survival. You've handed over your emotional control to someone who hasn't even proven they know how to hold it. True high-value energy is about being generous but selective. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about living in a way where your time, your emotions, your love are earned currencies, not freely given just because someone makes you feel something. And when you hold that frame, you're not just protecting your heart, you're also creating space for the right person to step up, match your effort, and build something real. Overinvesting too early doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. But recognizing it and pulling back when you feel yourself leaning too far in, that's where your power lives. There's a very fine line between wanting someone to like you and needing them to like you. One is rooted in confidence, the other in fear. When we seek validation instead of genuine connection, we unknowingly shift the entire dynamic of a budding relationship. What starts as natural attraction turns into performance. You stop showing up as you and start showing up as a version of yourself you think will be accepted, approved of, and chosen. This doesn't happen because you're shallow or needy. It happens because you care, because deep down you want to be seen, desired, chosen. But the way it plays out is subtle and slow. You start second-guessing your texts, overanalyzing your tone, wondering if you should say less or more. You might laugh at jokes that don't really land. You agree when you want to speak up. You pretend you're fine when you're not. And little by little, you stop being in the moment with this person and start watching yourself through their eyes, trying to edit yourself into someone they'll approve of. The connection stops being real because you're no longer connecting with the other person. You're trying to impress them. And when you do that, they're not falling for the real you. They're responding to a version of you that's constantly shifting and adjusting to please them. That's not intimacy. That's performance. And it's when someone is truly attracted to you, not just physically, but emotionally, it's not because you fit into their expectations. It's because you show them something real, something unfiltered, something uniquely you. But when you see constant reassurance, when you keep asking, do you still like me? Did I mess that up? Are you mad at me? It creates a dynamic where your worth is placed in their hands. And the second you give someone that kind of emotional power, the dynamic becomes uneven. So, this is especially dangerous in the early stages of dating, when trust and understanding haven't fully formed yet. If you're seeking validation, then every move they make or don't make feels like a test of your value. They take longer to reply, and your mind spirals. They cancel plans, and you start wondering what you did wrong. You begin playing detective instead of just being present. But the truth is, people don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with presence, with depth, with someone who is anchored in themselves. When you come from a place of confidence, you don't need constant signs that they're still into you. You're more interested in whether you're into them. You're not sitting around hoping they'll pick you. You're observing whether they align with your life, your values, your energy. That's what flips the power dynamic. That's when you stop chasing and start attracting. This isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about being so connected to your own worth that you no longer need someone else to confirm it for you. When you stop needing constant validation, you show up as someone emotionally stable, grounded, and magnetic. You create space for real connection to grow because you're not forcing it, you're not clinging to it, you're allowing it. And the most beautiful thing, when you stop needing someone to validate your worth, you become the person who's actually worth chasing. There's nothing more powerful in attraction than a person who knows where their line is and isn't afraid to walk away when it's crossed. But one of the most common ways people unknowingly lower their value in front of someone they're interested in is by slowly, quietly, and almost imperceptibly letting their standards slide. Not all at once, not in obvious, dramatic ways, but in small decisions that add up. And the reason this happens is almost always the same: the fear of losing the connection. It's easy to get swept up in chemistry. You feel a spark, you're intrigued, you want to keep things going. So when something small happens, maybe he cancels last minute or disappears for a few days, you hesitate to call it out. You tell yourself it's not a big deal, but it was a deal, and it chipped away at a boundary. And then it happens again. He gets a little too flirtatious with someone else or makes a comment that crosses a line. Again, you brush it off because you don't want to seem too sensitive, because you're afraid of being too much, because deep down you're thinking, if I push back, he might leave. So you let it slide. You start tolerating things that a month ago you would have never accepted. You justify, rationalize, and make excuses. And slowly you find yourself becoming someone you don't recognize, someone who's shrinking, compromising, and settling, not out of love, but out of fear. And here's the problem with that. Every time you ignore your standards to keep someone around, you send a message, not just to them, but to yourself, that your needs are negotiable, that your worth is flexible. And that's a message that erodes both your self-respect and their respect for you. People will only treat you at the level you require. When you have clear, consistent standards, you set the tone for how you deserve to be treated. You're not rigid, you're not cold, you're just aware of your value. And that awareness creates boundaries, not walls, boundaries, healthy, loving, powerful boundaries that say, I want you here, but not at the cost of me. What you're really doing is trying to gain closeness at the cost of connection. Because true connection, real, meaningful, lasting connection, only grows in the presence of authenticity. And there is nothing authentic about abandoning your needs just to be liked. The right person for you doesn't want you to suppress your voice. They don't want you to twist yourself into someone more convenient. The right person wants to meet your standard, not because it's easy, but because they respect you. Something powerful happens. People step up or fall away. And either outcome is a gift. Because if they step up, you're building a relationship rooted in mutual respect. And if they fall away, you've just cleared space for someone who can meet you at your level. Your standards aren't walls that keep people out. They're the foundation that ensures the right ones stay in. So don't lose them. Don't water yourself down just to be digestible. You were never meant to be easy to win over. You were meant to be chosen by someone who sees your strength and rises to meet it in the beginning of something new, especially when the chemistry is strong. It's easy to get swept away. You start talking more, texting constantly, thinking about them day and night. Suddenly, someone who was a stranger just a few weeks ago becomes the center of your attention. And while there's nothing wrong with being excited or enjoying the connection, the danger comes when you start losing sight of your own life in the process. It usually happens subtly. You stop going to that workout class you loved because he's free during that time. You postpone plans with friends because he asked to hang out last minute. You find yourself spending more time waiting for his next message than actually doing the things that make you feel alive. And while you may not even realize it, you're slowly shifting your orbit. You're no longer the sun in your own solar system. He is. And in doing that, you start losing the very energy that made you attractive in the first place. Think about it. When he first met you, you had your own rhythm, your own schedule, your own sense of purpose. You had passions, goals, friends, a life that was full before he arrived. That independence, that sense of fulfillment is what drew him in. But when that energy fades, when your world starts revolving around him, the balance shifts. You go from being someone he admired and wanted to be part of to someone who's depending on him for emotional oxygen. And that weight, whether he realizes it or not, becomes heavy. Momentum and individuality. When you have a life that excites you, when you're pursuing your goals, spending time with people who nourish you, creating moments that aren't dependent on anyone else, you bring depth to the relationship. You bring energy. You become someone who is interesting because you're interested in more than just him. And ironically, that's what makes people want to be closer to you. But when you abandon your own life to make room for someone else, you're not just neglecting yourself, you're also quietly telling the other person that their life matters more than yours, that their time, their plans, their priorities come first. And that creates a dynamic where your needs start to feel secondary. Over time, that imbalance doesn't just make you feel smaller, it makes the relationship feel heavier, more pressured, and less magnetic. Your life is not something to be put on pause for anyone. A relationship should complement your world, not become your world. The healthiest, most fulfilling partnerships happen when two whole people come together, not to complete each other, but to add to each other. That means you continue building your dreams, deepening your friendships, exploring your passions, regardless of what stage the relationship is in. Keeping your life full doesn't make you distant, unavailable, or selfish. It makes you grounded. It keeps your identity intact. It reminds you that love is something you give, not something you chase, and it makes you far more attractive. Because confidence doesn't come from someone choosing you, it comes from knowing that you would still choose you, even if they didn't. So don't shrink to fit into someone's life. Don't stop living just because someone new has shown up. Keep your world spinning and let them rise to the opportunity of being a part of it. That's where your value shines brightest. One of the most dangerous things we do in the early stages of a connection, especially when we're deeply attracted to someone, is overlook or minimize behavior that doesn't sit right with us. We feel the spark, the chemistry is electric, and there's something about this person that just pulls us in. So when they show us something questionable, a moment of disrespect, inconsistent communication, a lack of effort, instead we explain it away. We give them the benefit of the doubt over and over, not because they've earned it, but because we are hoping the potential will eventually match the reality. Making excuses for red flags is something that doesn't always come from weakness. It often comes from optimism. We want things to work. We're invested. We see the good parts, the soft moments, the connection. So when the not so great moments show up, we focus on what we hope the person could be rather than who they're actually showing us they are. And while this might preserve the illusion of a promising relationship in the short term, in the long run, it costs us something much greater, our self-respect. Red flags are not always glaring. Sometimes they're subtle patterns, passive-aggressive comments, flakiness, emotional unavailability, or a lack of real interest in your world. But when you ignore them or convince yourself it's not that bad, you begin to train yourself to accept less than what you truly need. You begin to lower your expectations, not because your standards changed, but because you're afraid that speaking up will drive the person away. And so, in silence, you shrink, you tolerate, you hope, you adjust yourself to fit their inconsistency. But here's the truth. Someone who is right for you won't make you question whether your needs are too much. They won't leave you decoding mixed signals or wondering if you're asking for too much by expecting clarity, kindness, and consistency. And they certainly won't require you to abandon your intuition in order to keep the peace. What you tolerate teaches others how to treat you. When you make a habit of excusing behavior that crosses your boundaries, you're telling the other person that your lines are flexible, that your emotional safety isn't a priority. And over time, this doesn't just affect the relationship. It affects the way you see yourself. You stop trusting your gut. You start feeling like maybe you are asking for too much. And the more you silence your instincts, the more disconnected you become from your own worth. It takes courage to stop making excuses. It takes strength to look at someone you're drawn to and say, this isn't enough. But that's exactly what preserves your power. You don't need someone who makes you justify disrespect. You need someone who makes you feel safe, seen, and secure without having to convince them of your value. The next time you catch yourself rationalizing behavior that feels off, pause. Ask yourself, if someone I loved were being treated this way, what would I tell them? Then give yourself the same honesty you'd give them. You deserve that kind of truth. You deserve that kind of love. Remember, seeing red flags doesn't make you judgmental. Ignoring them doesn't make you loyal. But honoring them, that makes you powerful. When you really like someone, it's natural to want to spend time with them, talk to them, be close to them. You feel the connection, the pull, the thrill of something new, and you want to lean into it. So when they call, you answer right away. When they ask to see you, you drop everything. You shift your plans, clear your calendar, and make it easy for them to access your time. On the surface, this can feel like love, like loyalty, like effort, but over time, being too available sends a very different message. My world stops for you. The moment someone feels that your time, energy, and attention are always guaranteed without having to earn it or invest back, they start taking it for granted. Not because because it's human nature. We naturally value what we have to work for, what we have to be intentional with, and what doesn't come on demand. When something or someone is always available, the urgency to pursue it, sense of importance starts to blur, and without even realizing it, the dynamic starts to feel unbalanced. There's a big difference between being warm and being wide open, between being kind and being constantly accessible. When you make yourself too available too soon, you create a dynamic where your presence becomes expected, not appreciated, and you lose a little bit of your mystery. That air of, I have a full, beautiful life and I choose to share it with you, turns into, I'll adjust my life for you, and the energy shifts. Being too available also looks like emotional over-availability, always being there to soothe their mood, always listening to their problems, always being the one to check in, plan, follow up. It becomes a one-sided emotional labor where you're pouring and they're receiving. And even if they like you, even if there's genuine interest, too much of that dynamic too early can create a quiet imbalance where they start seeing you less as an equal and more as a dependable fixture. Many people do this because they want to prove they're good partners. They want to show they're nurturing, reliable, emotionally tuned in. But the strongest connections aren't built on over-functioning. They're built on balance, on pacing, on two people bringing effort to the table, not one person doing the emotional heavy lifting for both. Being less available doesn't mean playing games. It doesn't mean ignoring texts or acting indifferent when you're not. It simply means having a life that you prioritize, plans, passions, routines, and responsibilities that don't evaporate the moment someone shows interest. It means not rushing to reply just to keep the momentum going or clearing your entire day because they finally want to see you. It's showing with your actions that while you're open to love, you're not starving for it. People are drawn to those who are grounded in their own world, someone who's centered, who doesn't abandon themselves the moment attraction enters the picture. When you maintain your space, your energy, your rhythm, you create healthy tension. You allow curiosity to build. You give the other person space to miss you, to wonder about you, to invest in discovering more. Your availability should be a privilege, not a guarantee. Not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you respect your time, your energy, and your life. And when someone steps into your world, they should feel lucky to be part of it, not entitled to all of it. Absolutely. Here's a powerful and emotionally grounded conclusion that ties together all 6 keynotes and leaves your audience with clarity, strength, and impact. Value isn't something you beg for, it's something you embody. It's not about being perfect, pleasing, or playing games. It's about having the courage to stand in who you are without shrinking, performing, or chasing someone else's approval. Every time you seek validation instead of real connection, or trade your standards for temporary closeness, you slowly start chipping away at your own power. Every time you abandon your life, excuse red flags, or make yourself too available, you send a message, not just to them, but to you, that their presence matters more than your peace. But here's the truth. The version of you that holds her own, that protects her energy, that honors her voice, is the most magnetic version of you. The version that doesn't settle, doesn't chase, doesn't wait by the phone, but continues building, creating, and loving her own life. That's the woman who commands presence without saying a word. Men, and people in general, don't fall in love with perfection. They fall for energy, authenticity. They fall for someone who knows what she brings to the table and won't stay where that value is overlooked. So if you've ever lost yourself trying to hold on to someone, if you've ever watered yourself down to be more likable, or stayed silent when you should have spoken up, know this: it's not too late to rewrite the way you show up. You don't have to perform. You don't have to overgive. You don't have to trade your soul for affection. You only have to remember who you are and refuse to forget it, even when love enters the room.